Navy Matters. Hello, and thank you for joining me today. It is my pleasure to come to you live from HMTV. I am your host, Bali Lerner. I'm the Executive Director at the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center of Nassau County. And welcome to my podcast, Unmasked, Unfiltered, and Unapologetic. And I think today our host is exactly all three of those. And she's going to give us from Israel, she's going to give us the unmasked, unfiltered, and unapologetic viewpoints and historical information that we so urgently need to spread and message that we need to hear today. And her name is Maya Bentwich. Maya, welcome. We are so happy. I know you were supposed to meet us live and in person, and then your flight arrangements had quickly changed. So you're now, joining us from Israel. I am going to actually let you introduce yourself because your resume, I don't want to cut it. I don't want to take anything away from it. And it's truly incredible. I just want to say it's an honor to have you here. And I want to start off with thanking you, not only for being here, but for your incredible work, your incredible voice, your poise, and really the way that you're able to stick to the facts and get your incredible messaging across. So if you can just say hello to our listeners and our viewers and give us a little feedback about your background and a little bit about what you're doing today.
Sure. So thank you so much, Bali, again, for having me on. It's a pleasure. I will start by who I am. So my name is Maya Bentwich. I'm an Israeli born and raised. I served in the IDF for 5 years. As an officer, I actually served in the welfare division. So I was a welfare NCO and then a welfare officer. I would be the one taking care of lone soldiers, people with low socioeconomic backgrounds, then did another role with the donor organizations of the IDF. And when October 7th happened, I was past my service, was working. And that same day, I understood what was going on, the multitude of what was going on. And I asked to be enlisted to reserve. So I'm not a combat myself. I need to be asked to get called. And so I did. And I started my reserves in the Human Resources Division. And 2 weeks into the war, I saw what was going on around the world, and I simply could not believe it. And so I did what is not very common, and I asked to switch to the IDF spokesperson unit. I had no previous experience or really any background in this realm, but I felt the need to advocate for our people. October 7th happened. We're obviously going to touch base on that. And then I saw the world's response, and I felt like we have to be proactive about this. So long story short, I led all the visits in the devastated kibbutzim in Kibbutz Kfar Aza, Be'eri, Nir Oz, Nova Site, for 6 months to world dignitaries and pretty much anyone that came down south. Among them were Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump, Mike Pence, Michael Rappaport, and many others. When I finished my reserve service, I tried going back to regular life, even though life has not even till this day gone back to normal for all of us, I think, for all of the Jewish people around the world, and currently in a bigger picture worldwide, really. But I could not stop advocating for our people because this is still continuing. So I worked with Elan Levy at the Israeli spokesperson's office for a long period of time and had the honor of doing so. And I've been advocating, working with various organizations and doing whatever I can, whether it's social media, podcasts like this, traditional media, both in Israel and abroad, delegations, speaking engagements. And this is actually not my day job. So my day job is actually in high tech, in Israeli high tech. That's a whole other conversation. I believe it's very important for the future of Israel as well. But the notion of the need to speak up for what's right. And I always say that this is not just about being Israeli and Jewish. Obviously, I'm Israeli and I'm Jewish. And so this is a part of what leads me and guides me in doing so. But I think there is a bigger issue here of the values that we advocate for, of the truth, morality, humanity, human rights, and the way that it has gotten twisted in this awful propaganda machine that meets us all, really. And I think is, like you beautifully put it, Bali, is why we're doing this and why we need to continue doing this. My partner is a reservist himself. He's a combat. He's actually on the front lines once again now. He's done 4 active rounds of reserves over 400 days. So I've been living this reality nonstop. And just to kind of wrap things up, as you mentioned, I was actually kind of stuck in the US. I was there on a work trip, was supposed to get back to Israel the day that this war started. And I only just got back recently. The situation on the ground here in Israel, I shared with you earlier, we're running to the shelters nonstop. We just had really a no sleep night. We had 6 sirens during the night. So going back and forth to the shelter and from the shelter, we might get interrupted in the midst of this. So apologies in advance if that happens. With that said, we have the front lines in which we need to combat in, like my partner is doing, and I'm incredibly proud of him. But we have another front line, and that is what I like to call the 8th front of the misinformation, of fighting the propaganda and spreading truth. So thank you again for having me. Deeply honored. And let's dive in.
Okay. So first of all, I was going to mention to our viewers and listeners that there is, hopefully not, but you have had a lot of restless nights and last night was another one of them, running back and forth to the shelter. And what people, I think, that have not lived in Israel at all, or have not been in Israel during a time like this, is that basically you could spend all night going back and forth, and nighttime is a big time when these things happen, where they're shooting at Israel, and basically you can spend so much of your evening running back and forth to the shelter, and yet you still have to get up the next day. You, meaning all Israelis, have to get up and still function during the day, go to work, do whatever it is that you need to do. So it's a very, very hard way to live, on top of all of the regular stress that you have, that you're dealing with, that we deal with in a regular world, right? And on top of it, you're also dealing with the stress, like your partner who is now on the front lines once again after 400 days, still risking his life yet again. So I think that it's sometimes we take it for granted and we make these assumptions that people understand, but day-to-day life, what's incredible is, as difficult as it is, Israelis, it seems like, have the most incredible outlook on life and enjoy their days probably more than most people around the globe, perhaps because of what they live through every day and how much they love their country and how dedicated they are. I'm just going to switch gears for one quick little second because I have to share this. I was listening to this very funny Israeli comedian who I've seen when he was performing here in the States, but I was listening to him the other day and he had this very funny line. He said, fortunately, now during a time of war, there are rescue flights. And he goes, let me just be clear about the rescue flights. And he said, the rescue flights are taking Israelis that are abroad in other countries and rescuing them to bring them to Israel. And then he goes on with the comedic part, which is, he said, now let me be clear. The rescue flights are taking Israelis that are in countries, visiting in countries that have no war, and rushing them and rescuing them back to Israel where there's a war. And then he's just so funny. Yohai Sponder, by the way, he just goes from no war to war. And it is, when you think about it for a moment, it sounds crazy. But I know my cousins are here right now, and their flight just got delayed. My cousins who live in Israel. And, I said, well, their flight got rescheduled for Saturday. I said, well, you have a week, so why not maybe, go visit another state, go somewhere else? And they said, no, we want to be close by in case we can get that flight moved up and we can get back home sooner. So this is something very unusual about the Israeli people that I don't think we focus on enough. And the love and the dedication through all of it, the connection. And I think it's important to state that us Jews in the diaspora, even if we've never set foot in Israel, have that direct connection. And we can touch and talk about that a little bit more later. But I do want to touch on one quick thing, because I know we're not necessarily going to get into the details today about your real job, quote unquote, which you must get more hours in a day than we do to do everything that you do. But I do want to discuss, you were listed as a Forbes 30 under 30. So if you can share, that is quite an incredible accomplishment. And I know you will not tout and, talk about it yourself, but I'm asking you to please share a little bit more on how you made that incredible list.
Sure. Thank you so much. Just to quickly touch base on your last point, which is spot on. I'm one of those people, and people can't believe it. I was stuck in the US. It's funny to say it. And I honestly could not wait to get back home, especially at times like these. I want to be here. I think most Israelis do so. I share that same notion. And on that note, by the way, I will speak for myself, but I think most Israelis feel like there is something big. I'll put it in simple words right now. There is something big going on. And if enduring this very difficult time, after very difficult 2 years, will enable the Iran people to be free from the horrible regime, we'll talk about that later, and to create change in the complicated world in which we live in, we stand behind it. And I saw on that note, I saw a very exciting video, a few videos about that notion, about how Israelis, as difficult as it is, are glad in a sense to be in this situation just for the prosperity of hope that it will create change. So just to continue that thought.
Yeah, I think that's truly a very, very important part of this conversation is, because sometimes people try and say, well, it's not happening in my backyard, it doesn't affect me. I mean, we clearly know that, of course, it does affect you directly. The U.S. and Israel working together side by side to take out nuclear capabilities of Iran and taking away as much of their ammunition and missiles and everything that they're using to put civilians in harm's way directly affects everybody in the diaspora. And of course, it affects Israelis. But it's interesting because, to your point, Israelis are obviously behind this because for their safety, but it's bigger than that. They're behind it because they truly feel so strongly about that the Iranian people deserve freedom once and for all from this horrible regime. So, and I think that because the enemy is so close to them and they know what the enemy really is, Israelis really truly feel for the Iranian people to such a deep level, and they are willing to risk their own safety and their own day-to-day lives so that Iranians that they've never met before can also be free one day, and God willing, that will be the case. So you stayed away from it again, but I'm going to push you one more time. Please share with me the Forbes 30 under 30 and let us know, because this is really quite an accomplishment. Tell us more about it.
Firstly, thank you so much. So I was recognized both for my advocacy work and my work in reserves and the work that I continued to do afterwards, and my entrepreneurship. So my day job working in high tech, and very humbled and honored to be a part of the list. I said this at the Forbes event last year in 2025, and I'm going to say it again. As honored as I am to be recognized in this impressive list, I feel like it symbolizes something deeper in which I'm a part of. And that is the importance of the advocacy work. That's a whole other conversation. We call it hasbara. I think it's not the right name, still trying to find out the right name. But anyways, advocacy in its different forms, or hasbara, whatever you want to call it. So the recognition of how important it is, and therefore recognizing me as a part of this bigger picture, is something that I'm very glad that is recognized, and that people both in Israel and around the world, mainly Jewish people, obviously understand the importance of it and want to echo it onwards. And so I think that there's a positive shift there. And the other part, which is very important to mention, is that I'm proud to be a part of this younger generation stepping up. And over the past over 2 years now, I've seen my peers, my friends, people that I don't know so well and came to know better, young people that are standing up and that are doing, in different realms. So I talk to you, a lot of people, do their bit within Israel, whether it's combats or other initiatives and of incredible resilience and resolve. And you see a young generation in which I'm very honored to be a part of, creating this movement from within Israel, to create a better world, to create a change, each in their field. And so therefore, to be recognized in my field and in my work for that is something that I'm humbled. And I feel like it's only just the beginning. We have a lot of work to do, but it's good that there's an understanding of how important it is.
And on that note, I will add, Israel is known as a startup nation. It's truly incredible how, I don't know if people really understand how much Israel is truly a leader in the tech world and what they've given to society. I mean, in so many, also in medicine and in so many other fields, but certainly in technology. And I do think a lot of it does have to do with the way that, Israelis are. I mean, I'm Israeli born, so the way from day one, you are raised in just a very different environment, and you really learn to seize the day. And I think it makes Israelis a little bit more bold and willing to take risk, because you kind of have to live the day to the fullest, because you don't know what tomorrow will bring. And I truly feel that along with, natural intelligence, and the time in the army, which is such an incredible, it's there's so much for everyone that is in the army to learn from. It's such an incredible experience, and they get so much out of it. I think that really develops young minds to just take risks, to look for opportunities, and to really aid, come up with things that help everyone across the globe. So it's incredible that you're doing it. I would say I'm surprised, but I'm really not. So I just want to, since this is what you do, you're great. If anyone doesn't follow Maya, please make sure, Maya will have to share what your Instagram handle is again, but it's Maya Bentwich. For anyone that has not followed her yet, please follow her. And what's incredible about your social media influence is that I actually, before we got on the call, just let our viewers know, I said to Maya, we need your help, because she's so great at creating very to the point, factual information in videos that help viewers understand what Israel's really about. And I think you kind of touched on it at the beginning, but I think we should expand a little bit. What is very interesting is that Israel and the Jewish values is very much in line with American values, in which this country, in which the United States was built upon. And unfortunately, at a time where we see so many people steering away from those values because of some things that they're being, indoctrinated really over social media, it's really important to try and bring back decency, respect, and a lot of the values that we've steered away from. And I think which might be obvious to some of our viewers, but maybe not to everyone else, is that Israel is the democratic state, the only in the Middle East region that really shares, really common values and, with us. And I think if you can expand a little bit on that, that would be wonderful, just to give people an insight for those that don't already know.
Sure. I think you touched base on pretty much the most important points, and I'll elaborate a little bit. I think what you said in the beginning is spot on. If you ask me what are the unique qualities of Israel and how they're curated, I would say the IDF, which is the melting pot of Israeli society. You meet all types of different people from different backgrounds, different areas in Israel, sometimes different religions, and you live with them in the closest way possible. And this creates something that I believe is like no other. And the IDF itself is the Israel Defense Forces and is grounded on values. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but the IDF has its core 10 values in which every soldier has to carry in their pocket. And that's what it's kind of brought up on, it's the age of 18, but still, the moment that you enlist to the IDF. And so I think that is a crucial part of the Israeli DNA. And those that don't enlist to the IDF for their specific reasons, they do national service. So there's a sense of obligation to our country and to the homeland. This connects a lot to our roots, obviously. So World War II took place, and then the Jewish people said, okay, we need a country, we need to go back to our homeland, or went abroad. And we see the way that it's developed now. We'll touch base on that a little further, but it is an important point to tie in now. That being said, Israel's technologies and startup DNA, like you said, Bali, fuels a lot of the world's toppest innovation, toppest medical solutions, et cetera, et cetera. And most people don't know this. I think a lot of Jewish people as well. By the way, that's one of the ideas for my next project, is to try to shed a spotlight on that, because I think it's incredibly important. That being said, Israel, let me start off by saying that I think Israel is a very hard country to understand. You said very beautifully, it's the only democracy in the Middle East. You look at the geography around it, you look at the way that Israel was brought to life and what it has went through since 1948 to this day, especially the intense 2 years that we've been through. It's a complicated country to try to understand, grasp, or fathom, especially if you're not here and especially if you're not Jewish. That said, it is not excuse in any way, quite the opposite of what is going on around the world right now. And so the misconception and the excuse me for being blunt, but you told me to, so I'm going to do it. The twisted lies, the twisted net of lies and propaganda. Sounds like, we all got used to the word propaganda, but real life propaganda about what Israel is as opposed to what is actually happening on the ground is absurd. The diversity that we have here, different religions living side by side, equal rights. We have Jews and Arabs and Muslims and Ethiopians and Buddhists and all living side by side. Unlike most misconceptions, Arabs that live in the state of Israel have equal rights and sometimes get to high positions, both in parliament and in the working system. People think that they use the terms apartheid now. It couldn't be any farther than that. Once again, you look at our neighboring countries and the way you look at Iran, for example, which is the most relevant topic right now. The Iranian regime oppresses its people and opposes to all of the values that we stand for. And like you said, the U.S. stands for the same values. Now, I think most Americans, by the way, do not really understand how this affects them, and this current war with Iran frightens them. It touches every single one of us. The Iranian regime holds nuclear weapons that could easily get to Europe and to the US. And they're straight out saying that they're coming for the Jews first, but they're for Israel first, for America that later. They're coming for the Saturday people, then the Sunday people. Death to Israel, death to America. Those are things that they are chanting. And somehow, the world is still blind to it, but not only blind to it, somehow it was twisted around as if Israel is the oppressor. There are a lot of facts, and we won't unravel all of them at once, but going back to my point, Israel is a beautiful country where you have diversity, where you have freedom, where we believe in human rights and act like it. Truth, morality, and humanity are core values that I believe in and try to live my life by, really. And so to say that and where I learned this is my beautiful country, is my surrounding, is my family, is the society that I was brought up in. And so the current reality where things have gotten so twisted is insane. And I want to just connect that dot to October 7th. I'm one of the only people that saw firsthand in a very broad, everyday 4-6 months picture of what took place, the atrocities that took place on October 7th. I saw firsthand what the Iranian regime that fuels these proxies like Hamas, and Hamas did this on October 7th, what it does. If we are not careful, they're very close to not just targeting Israel, but targeting the United States of America and targeting the world. And so I think that this is a fight, not just on ground, but a fight of minds, of hearts, of values. And one core issue that we have to attack in this war, and it's not going to end today or tomorrow or once things settle down in whichever way things unfold with Iran right now, this is going to be relevant to my children and to your children. And so if we don't tackle this hand on right now and try to create the shift, I'm afraid to know what world we're going to wake up in and we're going to live in. And I already see the shift. The good thing is that I'm optimistic. but we have to be proactive. We can't just, sit back and let the show happen.
I think that's a very good point. I like to say, I think that the squeaky wheel gets the oil, as we say. And so, the haters are always the ones to make the most noise. And so some people might think, oh, that's the majority. But so we can't assume that. And we have to, I'm hoping that the majority are good people. However, as we have learned and what we do here at the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center is we have to teach kids, because kids that are watching and listening on social media all day, the videos that they're seeing could change their mind, and they're being indoctrinated online. And so that is a very easy way. Like, while yes, we have to be hopeful, it is a very easy way for the indoctrination to occur. So it's a very easy way for the hatred and the lies to be spread. And, what we do here is basically we show propaganda. It was like the Holocaust did not begin with the Jews, in the gas chambers. The Holocaust began years before. When we talk to students and adults alike about the rise of Hitler, what happened in all those years? That anti-Semitism, that Jew hate was built up. It was in, we have artifacts here that we show the Jew hate in something as simple as a beer, as a stein, as a mug, a drinking mug, and with symbols of lies about Jews. So you would go to a bar and you would see this, right? We show it everywhere. We show it in children's books. And today, it's much easier for that hate to spread through social media. And that's a big chunk of what we as a center have shifted, because like everything else in the world, we can't keep doing what we've done before. We have to shift to modern day, especially with social media and the kids being indoctrinated at a much more rapid speed. And I think on that note, as far as being hopeful, I would just say we've also had, and I think the hope is also in the neighboring countries around the Middle East that are hoping for Iran to lose its power, because they don't want this either. A lot. I mean, some do obviously, but a lot that do not. And, we had speakers here from Bahrain and from Morocco, and they basically do what you do, which is pretty incredible, though. They bring delegations from their countries and countries that are with the Abraham Accords, and they bring Muslims to Israel to show them for themselves, because there's no better way to learn what Israel is really about than just seeing it for yourself. And so I know we do have some incredible allies. I know you were recently involved with our vice chair, Bernie Fershpan, and Andy, who's here as well. And you were involved in a Day of Hope in Jerusalem, which is carried through to the States as well. If you want to talk a little bit about that experience, that would be great for our listeners.
Sure. First of all, huge shout out to Bernie and Andy for everything that they're doing and for the light that they bring to the world and to our world. I've had the honor of participating in and moderating a Hanukkah event for Unity in Jerusalem that was around music. And I think we can always find these common denominators, but the core values that we speak of remain the same, and the message of getting it out there remains the same. This was a beautiful day to stop and highlight different heroes, I want to say, from various parts of Israeli society that have endured hardship the past 2 years in different ways. And they each lit a candle in celebration of Hanukkah. It was a beautiful event. I'm very honored to have had the opportunity to participate in. And Gazal Mizrahi, who's an incredible singer, was with us during that night. Her voice right now, especially with everything going on as a native Iranian, is incredible. She's currently in the US, but she knows the situation and brings a beautiful, very powerful voice, not just by singing, but also by speaking out and just being herself. So huge shout out to her as well.
Agreed. So I know that this might seem redundant to you, but I think it's very important. Very simply, if you can explain, what we teach here is how, unfortunately, anti-Semitism, Jew hate, has never disappeared, right? It just wears a different hat. And for thousands of years, we show the transformation, how it's evolved, and how it's basically like the same book with just a different cover. And today's, I think, a lot, while there are several of them, I think today's popular theme of hiding, pretending, is, and a form of indoctrination, is to say, I'm not an anti-Semite, I'm just an anti-Zionist. Now, you and I know if you're an anti-Zionist, you are an anti-Semite. But if you seem to have a better way of simply explaining things, probably more effectively than I can. So if you can just share your viewpoint on that.
Firstly, you put it very beautifully, and I think it's same book, different cover, 100%. Listen, there are terminologies, and some would maybe put it differently, but let me cut to the chase and try to put it simply. Zionism, at its core, is the understanding that Jews have a right to their homeland, to Israel. This was a term that came to life, as existed many years before, but really came to relive following the World War II. And so therefore, being an anti-Zionist is saying that you're against the native right for Jewish people to have a country, to have a homeland. If that is not anti-Semitic, I don't know what is. And so I think it's quite simple. And this, once again, has become twisted so deeply. People that are chanting that they're anti-Zionists and what the Zionists do, but they, once again, do not know what they're talking about. And this brings me to a very crucial point, and this is something that I try to say in every opportunity that I get. People do not have to agree with my viewpoint and with what I think or say, okay? I think it's great to have different opinions, and I will accept it. But my one question always is, do you know the facts? And this connects to what you were talking about earlier, Bali, which I think is an incredibly important point. We live in the 21st century. The war started at late 2023. This was the most televised, photographed, Instagrammed, whatever we want to call it, war of all times, regardless of Israel, non-Israel. And this by itself created a different genre in a sense. This combined with social media and the well-oiled, unfortunately, propaganda machine that exists in social media creates a huge problem. And as powerful a tool social media is, and I encourage people to use it and to use it to express their voice because it's important. It's a part of the world that we live in. We can't overlook it. You still also need to second question, verify the information that's being fed through social media, because social media is not a credible source of information. Sometimes is, many times isn't. We see our enemies using it against us. So what we have to do, in my opinion, is give it some sort of contract. So they create all these false narrative videos. Let's create the right narrative videos. That's great, incredibly important. But B, second guess that information and make sure that everyone around you or anyone that uses some video or some post as a credential for, oh, but this happened, not always. So please just make sure that you know the facts. When we stand for truth, that is what we stand for. Israel never has and never will publish anything if they haven't checked the facts. And in many cases during these past 2 years, it kind of went against us when really it shouldn't have, because I think that's our responsibility, especially the state of Israel, but any human being that's talking about these sensitive matters.
Well, I also, to that point, I remember when we showed the atrocities film that Hamas mostly was filmed that Hamas themselves and the Gazan people that came in and they filmed themselves raping and beating and killing. And so we literally, the footage is from their body cameras mostly, or from phones that they use. So we showed the atrocities film a while back, and a lot of the people walked out of there. First of all, some couldn't even sit through it. It was so horrific to watch. And a lot of people came out and they said, you need to show this to everyone. Why isn't Israel showing it to everyone? And I said, I asked the same question originally, and I was warned that if, first of all, it was out of respect to the families, and second of all, I believe that, whether it was the government or whoever, the decision was made that, we did not want to normalize these atrocities. And to me, I thought that was crazy. I said, like so many people were like, no, that's crazy. If people saw what was actually done to innocent civilians and babies and children, and mostly to so many peace, believers of peace, because that's why the people live so close to Gaza. They believe in peace. And people that have helped the Gazans, over time repeatedly. If people just see it, they'll know what happened, and they'll know, evil versus good. And unfortunately, I was proven wrong, because I think, and that is an issue, is that it has been normalized. It's been excused. I still can't wrap my head around it, but it has been excused and normalized because of propaganda that, builds Israel to be, those that harm others, which we know the proof, the numbers, the data is completely not true. But unfortunately, this is the world we live in, and we are trying to bring truth back front and center, and we're trying to educate students that come in here, basically learn the facts, like you said. And I normally don't keep plugging my guests and their accounts, but I really think it's very important that our listeners and our viewers follow you, Maya Bentwich, again on Instagram and social media, because you do actually really discuss these facts very simply, very clearly. And I'm sure that if any of our viewers want, they can message you if they want more information that they can then use to share with other people and go forward. Because that's the important thing, is that we spread light, we spread the truth, and we spread the facts. I have to ask, and you may not know off the top of your head, but what was the craziest misconception that you've, heard from? Because I'm sure you've gotten a lot of people that have come to Israel, and I mean, I know as much as I know the truth and the facts, and I also know about October 7th and what happened. When I landed at the airport, I had someone pick me up and take me straight to Bali, and there was. As prepared as I thought that I wasn't, and now when I come back here, when I came back to the States and I talk to people, I know what I saw with my very own eyes. And just like we have survivors and second generation, third generation talk and share the testimonies of the survivors so that we never forget the stories of what they lived through and the facts, it's the same thing with this generation. So on that note, what was the craziest misconception that you've heard when you've brought people to tour Israel and tour the sites?
It's a great question, and in a sense, a complicated one, because unfortunately, there are so many. Before I dive into that, I want to connect to your last point. Seeing it with your own eyes is like nothing else. And this is something that I would also say to anyone that came down south, is that you now see it with your own eyes. It's not like seeing it through the camera, through the lens, through social media or whatever it is. And you're now ambassadors, because unfortunately, people around the world, not only do they not believe us, they're twisting it against us, using the same terminology, because that's unfortunately the way that it is right now. And so thank you for deciding to come and see, and for anyone that chose to bear witness to the atrocities and then also advocate for it. I think the starting point, really, of this war of narratives is October 7th. Our enemies have unfortunately planned it and built it, I'm sorry to say it, in a good way, a way that works for their benefit for a long time. And so as much as there are different misconceptions, like we're murdering babies and eating their blood, which, sorry to say, I heard in the past already, I think that the misconception is what happened on October 7th and how the world responded to it and how it was twisted about. The fact that innocent civilians that chose to live less than a mile away from Gaza because they believed in peace, or people that attended the Nova Festival, which was literally a festival celebrating life, freedom, love, those are the people that were harmed by a terror organization that some people like to call militants. And so I would say that even if they were militants, which we know they're not, they're a terror organization, it wasn't military versus military. They went against innocent, peace-seeking civilians. That's the bitter pill of what happened on October 7th. And I'm sure we're all aware of the atrocities right now, but that's I think that's the whole misconception. I think that's the whole twist, and that's where it started. And unfortunately, it's continuing. It's going back to how we started the conversation, really, of the, the difference between what Israel really is like and what sort of picture is being portrayed to the world, and somehow people believe it, which in a sense connects to what you were talking about, Bali. And I want to touch base on that real quick. You were talking about, whether you should show the horror movie or not. And obviously, that was a topic of a conversation. I think I experienced it in a sense firsthand, because I was the one that needed to tell both the broad story of what happened on October 7th, but also the personal stories. I became very close to the kibbutz members. I met the families. I knew the testimonies and the stories and what happened in each house, et cetera, et cetera. And I felt like I was at a very fine line, if you will. On the one hand, the need to advocate for what's right and for truth was there. This is what drew me to do something that I've never done or was qualified for, in a sense, in the past. On the other, the need to protect the privacy and the well-being of my people was weighing down on the other shoulder. And so I think that it's a balance. That being said, we have so much power in what we choose to do and how we choose to do. I think that our people around the world are a source of power, our unity and our resilience and our diversity. And I'm talking about the Jewish people. Israel could not, in my view, Israel cannot exist without the Jews from around the world and without this common connection.
That's a great point. I remember after October 7th, one of my daughters who was, actually at the university at the time, she just wanted to get to Israel. Like on October 8th, she's like, I just want to go to Israel, because she felt such a deep connect. Now she's American born, but she just wanted to be there. And I said, you have a job here. And especially in a university campus, your job, you've been to Israel, you know what Israel is about. You know that it is not an apartheid state. We knew these stories were going to come out. You know that the IDF is the most humanitarian army. You know the truth. It is your job in the diaspora, and especially on a college campus, to spread facts and information, because so many people don't know. And I told her, your job, Israel is covered. The people there, they're going to do what they have to do, as difficult as it is. You have another very important role. And I think that's a really important message to every student, whether they're in middle school, high school, college, university, and the workforce. We don't need to fight with people. And the people that are spreading this, the lies, don't even waste your time with them. But the people that are in the middle, and that's what we teach the students here, the people that are in the middle that really don't know, it's up to us to share the information and the facts, and say, hey, if you come to us, and don't be scared to do that. You don't have to be able to answer every question. It's okay if somebody says to you, but what about this? And you can say to them, I'm not sure, but I'll get back to you. And they can reach out to our center, to you, to other people, right? And it's okay to say that. Don't feel that you shouldn't speak out in fear that you don't know all the information. It's okay not to know everything, but start spreading light, start spreading truth. I mean, that's what we teach here. And again, if people question you, and sometimes we teach them also, turn it around on them. When they spread some lies and disinformation, keep questioning them about it, because if they have to go to the fact and if they have to prove their point, they'll quickly realize that they can't. And that's really important. So it's a two-way street.
One of my favorite questions was, from what river to what sea? All these things that they're chanting that we all know. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but just real quick. I think no one knows everything, ever. I don't think that sort of person exists. I definitely, as much as I know the facts, I always have more to learn. And so that notion should not be a part of not standing up, not speaking out, not trying to each make our change. And I think that the core notion that is most important, and I loved how you put it, Bali, and what you guys are doing, and thank you again for the crucial work that you're doing. We each have a role to play, and not everyone will be up on a stage or doing a TV interview. That's not everyone's role. even if it's just in our circle, in our schools and universities, is a huge, such important topic. And for our future, for the sake of all of our future, speaking of the future of America, at the end of the day, the Ivy League schools and the universities in general, these are going to be the next members of Congress. And if we don't start educating them, again, we're heading down a very deep and narrow path, in my opinion. But that said, whether it's in school and university or in work or on your social media or whoever you come into touch with or in business, my father, when the war started, he's an entrepreneur, a doctor in training, has founded multiple companies, flew a few times to work. By the way, the work was in the UAE at the beginning of the war. And I was scared for him. I told him, are you sure you're okay? And this is why I'm in the Gazan envelope wearing protective gear full time. And he told me, listen, I can't be an officer in reserves anymore. He was also an officer in reserves. This is my reserves for my country. My way of making a difference is to continue building the Israeli ecosystem and the high tech, but also advocating through whatever I do. Us being good people and proud Jews, proud, not hiding who we are. And it's difficult. I don't know. I'm not experiencing what folks in the US and around the world are going through. I'm an Israeli. I'm based here. I can only imagine. We're all going through a very difficult time. That said, this is the money time. And we all need to be proud Jews that stand up and lead by example. Even just being that Jew and contradicting all that misinformation, or making, even if it's a small ripple effect, in whichever circles we run in whatever it is that we do, that's the difference that we can make. And like I said, you don't have to know all the facts. We can get educated pretty quickly. And like you said, Bali, 100% reach out to me, reach out to you guys and to whomever. And a lot of it is there and is online. You don't need to know everything.
I do want to touch base. I do want to touch, and not to go backwards in the conversation, but I do want to touch on something that you said about the militants, because I think it's very important. You know, propaganda, you know, sometimes people, and even myself sometimes, you don't notice. You know, the whole point of propaganda is that sometimes it's not as obvious. You know, sometimes like our Mayor Mamdani in New York City, not our mayor, but the mayor in New York City, he just posted a post of Khalil, you know, of someone who was, I don't know if you know the history about him, but he just posted something on his social media that was very, very unsettling for the Jewish population, and also should be for anyone that believes in American democracy. And I said, it's not just the photo itself, it's the decision to post it on social media. You know, it sends a very strong message. And so sometimes it's very much obvious and in your face, and sometimes it is so subtle that we don't even realize it. And so to your point, I'm bringing this up because you mentioned the word militants. And I know, for example, our Director of Education, Donna Rosenblum, she calls, she emails and contacts our local newspaper, Newsday, who often takes articles from the Associated Press, and she contacts the editors there on a regular basis. And one thing that they repeatedly were writing when discussing October 7th, post-October 7th, and discussing Hamas, and they would say militants. And the truth is, no, they're not militants. They're not a trained, respectable army that, you know, works the way the IDF does, that is looking for is careful with civilians and is there to fight a war. They're not there in gear where they're visible. No, they're blending in with the population and putting other people at risk. So I do think when we discuss, and we could do a whole nother segment just on propaganda that goes unnoticed, but that one word, you know, when you said it, militants, you know, that we repeatedly have argued with Newsday to stop using that term because it's inaccurate, along with the fake numbers that they were putting. But I will just like to end on this. First of all, you're incredible. I can talk to you all day long. I cannot thank you enough. All of us here really cannot thank you enough. I'm very grateful for everything you do. I'm grateful that no alarms went off. You didn't have to run to the shelter in this time that we were here. And I would like to just say, let's keep spreading the beauty. And I think because you are in Israel, I am a proud American Israeli Jew, and I am so proud of who I am, of my roots, of where I come from. And I'm so proud of everyone that I have met during this, unfortunately, very difficult time. And I think we will, because we are resilient people, we will come out on the other side of it. We will be stronger, hopefully safer and better people. As Americans, I hope that we will strengthen our democracy here. And I will just say, if you can keep posting not only the informative posts that you post, but also the beauty of Israel, the things that people don't get to see, and don't take any of it for granted. Just assume we know nothing and keep posting as much as you can. And so with that, I would like to thank you so much, Maya, for joining us today. And thank you for being part of Unmasked, Unfiltered, and Unapologetic. And nobody better than Maya Bentwich to join us here today. Thank you.